Jeffrey Weinhaus, the journalist that was shot twice in the head and twice in the chest by the Missouri State Highway Patrol in 2012 in St. Clair, Missouri. There's a lot out there about Jeffrey. People from all across the country have done very extensive research on his case, and he's already been proven innocent over and over and over again by a simple Google search, and you can see all the evidence that has been done. I want to give you a different perspective, something from the eyes of somebody from where Jeffrey was shot, from where Jeffrey lived, from where Jeffrey did what he did that caused him to be in the situation that he's in right now. I am from Franklin County, Missouri. That is the county where Jeffrey was brought up on false charges and convicted to a 30-year prison sentence where he sits in Bon Tier, Missouri today. I actually find myself right now standing in the same place Jeffrey was when he was shot. There's a gap between good and evil, and a lot of people like to turn their head and pretend like that's not there because it's not a comfortable place to even be standing next to. But in any group of people, if left unchecked, there will be some that rise too high within themselves. And that balance of power takes over to something that becomes harmful to other people if left unchecked. And a lot of times it does boil down to citizens that are willing to stand up against it and demand change and demand accountability. And that is what I have been doing for the last several months. And I find myself many times standing in that gap and knowing that there's a target on my back because of it. And I want to give you Jeffrey's story from my eyes, being somebody who is now standing where he stood so that you can see it from Jeffrey's eyes. Now, Jeffrey was shot 4 times in 2012, and there's been a lot of stuff that's been written in the paper about it, been on the news. Jeffrey's been painted to be a menace that is better off where he is because he was a danger to society. It's all malarkey. Jeffrey, like I am now, stood in that gap. He lived in that gap, and he thrived off of that gap, and he did it because he knew that he had to be that voice and that responsibility, that checking of balance and power. There's been extensive research done on Jeffrey's case from people all across the country, and I'm not going to get into his entire story. There's not enough time on one video. A simple Google search, and you can see all the information that's out there. But I'm going to skip to right before he was shot. And Jeffrey was a journalist. He put out a newsletter that he called The Bulletin. Shortly before he was shot, he put an ad in this newsletter asking for tips on local government corruption, and he received about 200 responses back that were all stored on his computer. Shortly after that, he received a knock on his door from Sergeant Henry James Folsom from the Missouri State Highway Patrol. This man was supposedly sent out to gauge if Jeffrey was a threat or not. It's interesting to note here, and this is something that people don't normally talk about, that Troop C is the troop of the Highway Patrol that would be in charge of Franklin County. And it was not Troop C that came, it was Troop I, which is a completely different jurisdiction, and they didn't even really have the authority to be there in the first place. And I just wanted to point that out, because that's something not a lot of people catch on to. They didn't even have the authority to even talk to him in the first place. But they come and they want to talk to Jeffrey. They talk to him about a half an hour sitting outside in the front yard. But 30 minutes later, they ask him if they can see his computers, and he tells them no. So they leave, and they're going to get a search warrant for Jeffrey's computers, who they go through several judges looking for, and they finally bring one back. They take Jeffrey's computers. You know that was their intention the entire time, and now that you know what Jeffrey ran an ad for, it doesn't take much to figure out what they were after. They take his computers, and Jeffrey files many pieces of paper and makes many phone calls trying to get his computers back. Finally, he is victorious. He gets the phone call that he's going to have his computers returned. He's finally won. He exposed what was happening. They came in, they took his computers, and now they're returning them. Jeffrey, in his mind at this point, is victorious. But what they want to do is they don't want to meet him at the police station, which is the standard procedure. When you get any confiscated items back, you meet at the police station, you get it from the receptionist or whoever is there, you sign a piece of paper and some logbook to get your merchandise back. They wanted to meet Jeffrey at a gas station, a secluded gas station in the middle of nowhere in St. Clair, Missouri. Jeffrey knew that something was off, so he tried to get a pastor or somebody neutral to go with him, and he was unable to. So what he did was he was on the phone with the mother of his children. He also had a watch on his left wrist that was recording everything. And this was actually a fact that was not known until well into the trial. And Jeffrey was actually had a video of the incident. Jeffrey was on the phone with the mother of his children, and he is on his way. You see him in this video. He gets out of the car, and he doesn't make it very far. He only makes it a couple feet. Within 13 seconds after stepping out of the car, Jeffrey is shot twice in the head and twice in the chest, and he's laying on the ground. Miraculously, he lives.
How's it going, Jeff?
Good, how are you?
You got the gun for?
Why I got the gun? What you got the gun for?
Because I'm an authorized gun.
Alright, well, I'm authorized to have
Get down on the ground.
Get on the ground.
Get down on the ground.
You're going to have to shoot me, man.
I know that this is my bar card and the driver's license, and I got a card for you, too.
That's
We're a couple of lawyers from St. Louis that Jeff's family came down and talked to us about what happened out here the other night.
Execution, you mean?
Well, that's what they're saying.
That's exactly what the fuck it was.
And you said you saw it go down?
I was standing right there where my truck is parked, exactly where it's parked right now.
Is that right?
Yep, and I was facing this way, and after I heard the first shot, it was pow, 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 pow. After I heard the first shot, I turned around, and a man was falling towards me with his hands up, facing me, and the cop straight behind him, and he shot him fucking as he was going down.
Was his gun in his holster still?
I never seen a gun.
Oh, you never saw a gun?
I never seen a gun, period.
So not whenever he has hands up?
No,
okay.
no. All I can say, I cannot swear the man did not have a gun. I can swear the man did not have a gun in his hands.
Is that right? And you said he had his hands up like this?
He felt like this. And the man that was with me will tell you the same thing, and I done talked to him, and I give you his phone number, you can get a statement from him too.
Was he being mouthy with the cops?
I never heard nothing.
Really?
All I heard was shooting. I mean, I'm hard of hearing, okay?
Yeah.
From starters, but I never heard cops. I never heard nobody say stop, freeze, police. I never heard nothing. All I heard was pow, 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 pow.
How many cops were there?
How many what?
How many cops were there?
There was 2 cops over here, and there was 2 cops parked where that red Blazer is right now, except for they was over this way a little bit. And my guy, actually, I was here to put that gutter up. See where that gutter's busted on this end, that board?
Yeah.
That's what I was here for, okay? Well, I pulled up where I'm pulled up now, and I waited about a minute, and I'm waiting, and I couldn't see in the car. I seen a silhouette of one guy in the car in front of me, okay? Yeah. So I told my buddy Steve, I said, Steve, get out and ask these, excuse my language, these fuckers to move so I can get so I can get done, you know? I didn't know they was cops, okay? So my buddy gets out, he knocks on the window, he says, hey, can you guys back up? We got to put a gutter up here. And the guy says, sure, no problem. So he proceeds to back up, and he backs up, and he points over this way. You can see the orange marks where he parked that over there.
Okay.
Well, he backed up. I got out. Steve got out. My buddy Steve got in the back of the truck and handed me the gutter out. I set the gutter on the ground. That's when the shooting started.
Okay. And so, how many shots did you hear?
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Yep.
And so,
I'm a minimum of 4, a maximum of 6.
Okay.
I heard a pow, 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 like that.
Yeah. Did you see after they shot him? Did you see the cops trying to help him out at all, or were
no,
they,
no?
We know they eventually called the ambulance, but
yeah, dude, this makes me think this was such a setup. Within 30 seconds, this fucking parking lot was full of fucking cops. Within 30 seconds.
Is that right?
I mean, yeah, within 30 seconds.
Did they look like local guys, or were they
there was
feds?
These 2 guys were in plain clothes. These 2 guys were in plain clothes. When these 2 guys got out of the car, they put on vests that said FBI.
Wow.
These 2 guys over here was gone like that. They was whisked away, gone. And I seen them right before they left. I seen one of them standing right here next to some kind of vehicle. It wasn't an ambulance or nothing, but the one guy that actually I seen do the shooting was standing right here, and he was getting his hands taped up. Why they was taping his hands up, I have no idea, but they was taping his hands up with, you know that box tape, that clear box tape you box cardboard boxes up with? They was taping his hands up with that, and they was gone.
That could be for the gunshot, the residue from the gunshot.
But I mean, it was just literally split. The 2 guys that did the shooting, I never seen him again. Wow. And then it was just infested with cops.
How long until the ambulance got here? Did you stick around, or did you get out?
I was here. They made me stay around and make a statement. I say the ambulance was here unusually fast.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, like, if somebody got hurt here, I'd never seen an ambulance get here that quick.
Is that right?
It's like everybody was just waiting for this to go down, you know?
How? Let me ask you something. So you said that your friend was with, or the guy that was working with you? What's his name?
Steve Everhart.
Steve Everhart?
Yep. You need to talk to that person across the street, too.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
I'll tell you the same thing. Man did not have a gun in his hand.
Yeah. You don't have Steve's phone number, do you?
Yeah, sure do.
Do you?
I just talked to him. I asked him if I give you his, he said, yep, have him call him.
Okay.
I'll grab a notebook if you don't mind.
Yeah. Let him grab a notebook. And so I mean, it sounds like that.
It sounds like murder.
Well, I don't disagree with you. You know, we're trying to piece together what happened as well. And we know that Jeff. You know, did you know Jeff before this?
I never met the man, never heard of the man. I don't know him from Adam.
Okay, and you know,
he can be a nutcase from hell as far as I'm concerned. Ain't none of my business. What I'm concerned about is this was murder.
Yeah, and I mean, even we know that he was a bit of a rabble rouser
Well, that's
around
fine,
here.
you know, this is America, man.
Yeah,
you know,
you can't shoot people.
No, you can't shoot people because you don't like what they do.
After being shot twice in the head, twice in the chest, Jeffrey lives. That's an absolute miracle in and of itself. Shortly after Jeffrey's release from the hospital, instead of being able to get the therapy that he needs and be able to have his ordeal over after being shot 4 times, Jeffrey was brought up on charges by prosecuting attorney Robert Parks, who, based on the shooting officer's word alone, brought Jeffrey up on charges of attempting to shoot the officer and armed criminal action. In court, there was not one single scrap of evidence that was produced on Jeffrey's behalf, and there was actually quite a bit of evidence available even at the time of trial for Jeffrey's innocence. The biggest piece of evidence alone would have been 2 FBI agents that were present. They actually saw what happened, and they gave depositions afterwards to Robert Parks, our Franklin County prosecuting attorney, where they swore in their depositions that they could see Jeffrey's hand at the time of the shooting and then he had nothing in them. One of the FBI agents actually swore in his deposition that he ran over after he saw the shooting officer, Sergeant Henry James Folsom, shoot Jeffrey and saw Jeffrey fall. He said that he ran over to him and he saw Sergeant Henry James Folsom pulling a holster out from underneath Jeffrey with a gun in it. That was the first time that this man had ever seen a gun. He did not even know the gun was involved. And he could see Jeffrey's hand when Jeffrey was shot. That right there exonerates Jeffrey. That was taken off of the witness list, these FBI's agents' testimony, after Robert Parks, our Franklin County prosecuting attorney, heard them, because he knew that that would clear Jeffrey. There was also a plethora of evidence, which is still available on the internet. It was at the time of the trial, that would have cleared Jeffrey. But it was all withheld from court, and that was knowingly and maliciously to sway the trial to convict Jeffrey Weinhaus. There has not been one piece of evidence to date that has been able to contradict the evidence that has been put together that Jeffrey is innocent. And in court, Jeffrey was never even accused of pulling his trigger. Now, you've heard a witness state that it was an execution. You've heard a witness state that Jeffrey had nothing in his hands. So you have 2 FBI depositions that swear there is nothing in his hands. Another interesting thing to point out right now is that Sergeant Henry James Folsom, and this is a fact that was not allowed to be put in trial, Sergeant Henry James Folsom was actually looked at for a previous shooting where the exact same words were used, that he had to eliminate somebody as a threat. So there's a previous death in a questionable shooting by the same officer, and that wasn't even put into trial. But as a recap of the story, a troop that was not even belonging in Franklin County came and knocked on Jeffrey's door, and they took his computers. Now, Jeffrey got a call that he was going to get his computers back. At that point in time, Jeffrey has won. There is no point at that point for him to take an arsenal of weapons and assault the highway patrol. There is no point for him to whip into that parking lot and come at him like Rambo and say, "You gotta shoot me, man." Jeffrey won. He exposed what was happening. He got his computers back after they were legally taken, and he won. When he pulled in, the trunk was popped. They were supporting the ruse that Jeffrey was going to get his computers back. Instead, they shot him. Franklin County needs to know what happened, and so does the rest of the world. Jeffrey is sitting in a prison in Bonne Terre, Missouri, on a 30-year prison sentence. Jeffrey will live the rest of his life in prison for a crime that he did not commit if somebody does not reach in and stop this. Jeffrey has an appeal that is sitting on the desk of governor. It has gone through the last governor. We have reported this to Hawley, to the president, to every organization under the sun. Everybody wants to pass the buck to somebody else and say that is not their problem, but Jeffrey is every one of our problem. He is an innocent man that was gunned down in a parking lot by the Missouri State Highway Patrol after he exposed things that people weren't comfortable with. We may not have always agreed with his views and the way he came across things, but as you heard the witness state, this is America. We have the right to free speech. And if the freedom of speech and press is limited, there is no freedom at all. There will be some links in the description to some sites that you can visit and learn a little bit more about Jeffrey, and I encourage you to do that. His story really is important, and it's something that could happen to any one of us that decides to stand in that gap. And when you stand alone, the courage that it takes to do that is something that not a lot of people have, but those kind of people are necessary to keep those checks and balances in place. And when you have the courage to do that, generally, you put a pretty big target on your back. And Jeffrey was lucky enough to live through this. Other people haven't. Jeffrey is still alive, and he still does need a voice. And I encourage you to learn more about his story. I encourage you to get involved and be a voice for Jeffrey. I am going to leave you with one final thought. I'm going to let you watch the video of Jeffrey being shot one last time. And then I'm going to play for you the dispatch call that was caught after Jeffrey was shot as they reported his shooting. And you're going to see exactly how they looked at this situation by that. I hope that you've heard this with open ears, and I hope that you decide to make a stand for Jeffrey today. Peace and blessings.
How's it going, Jeff?
Good, how are you?
You got the gun for?
Why did I got the gun? What you got the gun for?
Because I'm an authorized to have a gun.
All right, well, I'm authorized to have
Get down on the ground.
Get on the ground.
Get down on the ground.
You're going to have to shoot me, man.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a Jeffrey Weinhaus guy. You familiar with that name?
Oh, no. They're messing with him again?
Yeah, maybe he learned his lesson this time. I don't know.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, that's Franklin County. All right.